Kingston, Jamaica, February 23, 1979. Imagine a courtroom packed to bursting point. The air is thick with tension, sweat, and the unspoken fear of a nation on the brink. In the defendant's chair sits not a criminal, not a gang leader, but a musician, a man armed only with a guitar and a message of love. Bob Marley, the biggest reggae star on the planet, is facing a judge who holds the power to silence his voice forever. The charge? Inciting public disorder through seditious musical content. The stakes? 5 years in a maximum security prison and a lifetime ban from performing in his own homeland. The prosecutor is ready to prove that songs like Get Up, Stand Up are weapons of war. But what happens next will defy every rule of the legal system. A judge will issue a challenge, a song will be sung, and history will be rewritten in real time. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to Marley Files, The Untold Stories. The story begins. The trouble began 3 weeks earlier. On January 30th, 1979, the National Stadium in Kingston was shaking. Bob Marley was on stage dedicating Get Up, Stand Up to the sufferers living in the tin shacks of Trenchtown. 15,000 people rose as one, fists raised, demanding change. But politicians watching from the VIP box didn't see unity. They saw a threat. Next morning, MP Charles Davidson filed a complaint. This man is using music to incite anarchy. His lyrics are seditious. Within a week, the warrant was issued, and at 9 a.m. in the Supreme Court, Judge Patricia Williams looked down from her bench. Known for her iron gavel, she had zero patience for disorder. Attorney General Harold Morrison stood up, pointing a finger at Bob. Your Honor, the defendant has used his platform to undermine respect for authority. His songs contain dangerous messages that encourage youth to rebel. In Burnin' and Luton, he romanticizes destruction. In I Shot the Sheriff, he promotes violence against police. This is not art. It is instructions for chaos. B. Upset silently, his hands clasped. His attorney, David Chen, stood up. Your Honor, Mr. Marley's music promotes love and justice, not violence. There is a difference between standing up for rights and breaking the law. Judge Williams cut him off and looked at Bob. Mr. Marley, do you understand that if convicted, you face 5 years in prison? How do you plead? B. Bob stood slowly, his voice calm. Not guilty, Your Honor. The trial moved quickly. Attorney General Morrison was relentless, calling witness after witness to paint a picture of a society unraveling because of one man's guitar. First came Police Commissioner Frank Thompson. He sat in the witness box stiffly, medals gleaming. Commissioner, Morrison asked, what changes have you observed since Mr. Marley's music became popular? Chaos, Thompson replied bluntly. Since his rise, the youth have become defiant. They quote his lyrics when we try to arrest them. They challenge our authority. His concerts aren't just shows. They are breeding grounds for unrest. We can barely control the crowds. They feel empowered to disobey. Next was Margaret Foster, a conservative school principal. She looked scandalized just being in the same room as Bob. Mrs. Foster, tell the court about the effect on your students. It is terrible, she said, clutching her purse. Students come to school singing about revolution and fighting the system. They question their teachers. They refuse to follow rules because they believe they are standing up for their rights. His music is making our children ungovernable. It is poisoning their minds against discipline. Finally, MP Charles Davidson, the man who filed the complaint, took the stand. Mr. Marley's concerts are political rallies disguised as entertainment, Davidson declared. He uses the rhythm to hypnotize the people, to turn them against their elected leaders. He preaches that the system is Babylon, that it must fall. This is sedition, pure and simple. He is trying to topple the state with a song. 11:45 a.m. the defense strikes back. Bob's lawyer, David Chen, knew he had to fight back with truth. He called Dr. Marcus Reed, a sociologist from the University of the West Indies. Dr. Reed, Chen asked, does Mr. Marley's music incite violence? Quite the opposite, Dr. Reed testified. Data shows his music has reduced violence. Before his One Love Peace concert, political tribalism was tearing this country apart. His music brought warring factions together. He provides a release valve for the anger of the poor. He has prevented more violence than he has ever caused. Chen called a former gang member who testified with tears in his eyes. His music didn't tell me to kill. It told me I was worth something. It told me I was a king, not a thug. But Judge Williams seemed unconvinced. She tapped her pen on the bench. She needed to understand the man himself. 1:15 p.m. Bob takes the stand. Mr. Marley, Judge Williams said, leaning forward. Please take the stand. The prosecution claims your music is a loaded gun. How do you respond? Bob walked to the witness box. He placed his hand on the Bible, but his eyes were on the judge. Your Honor, Bob said, his voice melodic yet grounded. My music comes from Yah, from God. It speaks about love, about unity, about people standing up for what is right. When I sing Get Up, Stand Up, I am not telling people to burn down the courthouse. I am telling them to demand justice when the law is unjust. Can you explain the difference? The judge asked sharply. Your Honor, if a law says that a black man cannot walk on the sidewalk, should he obey that law? If a law says the poor must starve while the rich eat, should they accept that? Sometimes standing up for what is right means challenging what is wrong, but always through love, never through hate. My weapon is the truth, not the gun, Morrison interrupted. But Mr. Marley, your song I Shot the Sheriff, it clearly promotes violence against police officers. You literally sing about shooting a lawman. Bob smiled, a sad, knowing smile. Mr. Morrison, that song is not about killing a policeman. It is a metaphor. It is about self-defense against oppression. The sheriff represents the wickedness that tries to hold the people down. And even in the song I say, but I did not shoot the deputy, meaning, I only fought back when I had to. Judge Williams leaned in closer. Mr. Marley, what do you want your audience to do? I want them to love themselves, Your Honor, Bob said. I want them to work for justice, but through peace. I want them to stand up for their rights through unity, not division. But your lyrics can be interpreted as calls to revolution, the judge countered. Bob nodded. Yes, Your Honor, because sometimes we need revolution, but not the kind with guns and blood. We need a revolution of the heart, a revolution of the spirit. Judge Williams stared at him. If I rule today that you cannot perform music with political messages, will you comply? Bob looked at the judge, then at the crowd. Your Honor, Bob said quietly, I would respect the court's authority, but I would also have to follow my conscience. If Jah calls me to sing, I have to sing. I would rather go to prison for speaking the truth than be a free man who stayed silent. 2:30 p.m., the judge's decision. After closing arguments, Judge Williams announced a recess. The courtroom buzzed with anxiety. Was she going to lock up the king of reggae? When court reconvened, Judge Williams looked tired. She had spent 30 minutes, alone wrestling with a decision that would affect the future of artistic freedom. Mr. Marley, she began. Please stand. Bob stood, his posture straight, prepared for the worst. I have listened carefully to all testimony, Judge Williams said. I have reviewed your lyrics. I have considered the law and the concept of justice. The courtroom held its breath. Mr. Marley, I want you to do something for this court. Something unusual. Bob frowned slightly. Your Honor, I want you to perform, she said. I want you to sing one of the songs that the prosecution claims is seditious. I want to hear the message with my own ears in your voice right now. I want to know what you are really saying. Bob was stunned. The crowd gasped. Morrison jumped up, his face red. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This is a court of law, not a concert hall. Judge Williams slammed her gavel. Mr. Morrison, sit down. You have spent hours telling me how dangerous this music is. Now I want to hear the danger for myself. Mr. Marley, proceed. Bob looked around. He didn't have his guitar. He didn't have the Wailers. He only had his voice. He closed his eyes, tapped his foot on the wooden floor to find the rhythm, and began to sing. He chose Redemption Song. Old pirates, yes, they rob I. Sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. The effect was immediate. Bob's voice, raw and unaccompanied, filled the sterile courtroom. It bounced off the mahogany benches. It transformed the space from a place of judgment into a cathedral of truth. But my hand was made strong. By the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Judge Williams watched Bob's face. She saw the pain, the sincerity, the deep spirituality. This wasn't the face of an anarchist. This was the face of a prophet. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have. Redemption songs. People in the gallery began to weep. Tears streamed down the faces of hardened bailiffs. Even the court stenographer stopped typing, mesmerizing by the melody. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Bob poured his soul into the lyrics. He wasn't singing to the judge anymore. He was singing to history. When the last note faded, the courtroom was completely silent. No one moved. The vibration of the song seemed to hang in the air like smoke. Judge Williams wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. She took a deep breath and looked at Bob. "Mr. Marley," she said, her voice soft. "In 30 years as a judge, I have never asked a defendant to perform, but I needed to hear your music without the filter of lawyers." She paused. "What I heard was not sedition. What I heard was pain transformed into hope. What I heard was a man singing about freedom, not freedom from the law, but freedom from injustice. What I heard was truth." She turned to the prosecution. "Mr. Morrison, you argued that Mr. Marley's music is dangerous because it encourages people to stand up for their rights. But in a democracy, standing up for one's rights is not sedition. It is citizenship." She turned back to Bob. "Mr. Marley, I find you not guilty of all charges." The courtroom exploded. Cheers, shouts of Jah Rastafari, and applause shook the walls. Bob's supporters jumped to their feet. Judge Williams smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "Mr. Marley, I want to say one last thing. Music does have power. With that power comes responsibility. I trust you will continue to use your gift to promote justice, through peace and love, through understanding." Bob bowed his head. "Yes, Your Honor, I will. God bless. Case dismissed." The gavel struck the wood, signaling the end of the trial, but the beginning of a legacy. The aftermath of the Crown versus Marley was profound. It became a landmark precedent for artistic freedom in the Caribbean. The Marley decision established that music expressing political views was protected speech, a fundamental human right. Bob Marley walked out of the Supreme Court that day not just as a free man, but as a vindicated leader. The crowds outside were so thick that traffic in Kingston stopped for hours. They carried him on their shoulders like a hero. Judge Patricia Williams later reflected, "When Bob Marley sang in my courtroom, I realized I wasn't just judging a man. I was judging the voice of an entire people. How could I silence hope? How could I criminalize truth? If I had sent him to prison, I would have imprisoned the conscience of Jamaica." Bob never forgot it. He would often tell audiences, "They tried to put I in prison for singing about freedom. But freedom can't be imprisoned. Truth can't be criminalized." Today, in that same courtroom in Kingston, there is a small plaque on the wall. It doesn't list a law. It displays lyrics from the song that saved a man's freedom. "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." Bob Marley proved that day that a song can be stronger than a statute, and that the truth, when sung from the heart, is the ultimate defense. If this incredible story of justice and the power of truth moved you, make sure to subscribe to Marley Files, the Untold Stories, and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that art and freedom are inseparable. Have you ever seen music change someone's perspective? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more untold stories about the legends who fought for our right to speak truth through music. One love.